Hey guys, welcome to this video. I want to talk about how you really do need to set firm boundaries in order to hit that stride in your relationship where things feel like they can flow naturally. So, the goal of domestic discipline is not to be able to live outside of the structure or the titles or the authority structure of domestic discipline. We want to go into domestic discipline understanding that these authority structures, these rules, these titles, the understanding of the hierarchy, those things are forever. That is just how our relationships are going to function from here on out. But you can get to a point where things feel easy, where things flow naturally, where you are not having to fight against your natural inclinations to want to do things outside of the structures. But that only happens when you set firm boundaries. There is no fast tracking this process. You have to go through it. And you have to get to a point where those boundaries are set, they are firm, they are unmoving. And only when that happens, can you get to a point where things flow naturally. When water is flowing on rock and it doesn't have a groove, it goes everywhere. But over time, as that water continues to flow, the rock gets that groove in it, and then the water flows more easily, more cohesively. That's the same thing that happens in our relationships, is we have to kind of carve out those boundaries, carve out a path so that we can flow within the boundaries in a way that feels cohesive, that feels easy, that feels natural. And the only way to do that is to go through the process of setting those boundaries. The way you set those boundaries is that you have to have very clear expectations. You have to have those expectations backed up with strict accountability. There can be no gray area. There can be no exceptions. Every time you make an exception to a rule, you set back your progress in this area. Every time you don't uphold a boundary, then you undermined the boundary from being taken seriously. So don't undermine your authority and don't set back your progress by not upholding these boundaries unless there is like a really, really good reason, which those things are few and far between. But there may be the occasional exception that would be acceptable to make. However, you really do want to refrain from the temptation of letting things go on a regular basis. So when you set your boundaries, when you uphold them with strict accountability, you start to build the structure of your relationship. And as that structure builds, you can start to find comfort and peace and joy within those boundaries to where now you can come together in a cohesive way to where you're not working against one another and you're not working against your inclinations to go outside those boundaries. You're very comfortable within the boundaries. You're very comfortable working cohesively with your head of household or your taken in hand, and you can work together within those boundaries to have a very harmonious relationship, and that is the goal. It's only once these habits are formed and the expectations are solidified that you can start to experience the ease that comes from living within the bounds of your role within the relationship. And so I know that this is a shorter video, but I feel like this is a really important topic to talk about because I don't think there's enough conversations around what does domestic discipline look like after you have kind of established your relationship, after you have formed those habits, after you have put those boundaries into place. Because I think that there is a misunderstanding that you are eventually going to go back to looking like your relationship before, but just with a better dynamic. And that is not the goal. You don't want to live without domestic discipline again. You don't even want to get to a place where you just kind of live outside of the structures and outside of the roles. Even if there's like, well, there's an expectation that spanking could happen, it just never needs to happen because we've graduated beyond that. There is no graduating beyond that. These structures, these systems are just how your relationship functions now. And you want to live within the boundaries. You actually want to create a deeper and deeper chasm within those boundaries because that is where you thrive as a couple. Does that mean that discipline is going to be happening a lot forever? Probably not. There's probably going to be a point where discipline does slow down as you get established within your role and within the habits. That eventually will slow down. You won't necessarily be disciplined as often, but it's not the goal to not be disciplined. The goal is to really grow in your relationship and grow in your role. And as you do that, discipline will naturally slow down, but you can't go in with discipline ending as the goal because you're never going to get there. And if that's your focus is not on the right thing. And so you really want to focus on creating those boundaries, creating a system where you can live within the boundaries so that you can have that like ease within the relationship. Because once those boundaries are established, once you know what your role is, how it functions, how you function together as a couple, you can really start working together within those boundaries to have that kind of ease in your relationship, and that is the goal. We want our relationships to feel easy. Not because life is easy, but because we want to have joy, because we want to enjoy our relationships, because we want to enjoy our spouses. And so that is the goal, is that we want to get to a place where we are having joy and we are having ease and we are having connection without having to fight against those desires to go outside the bounds, because we are so comfortable and we are so deep within the boundaries that going outside those bounds is just unfathomable. And that is really the goal of that. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this one. I hope that you are having a good week, and I will talk to you guys later.